I'm Stephen. That's Jon. We're from Just Got Played, and we wrapped up the MrX's top 25 games of all time. But I wanted to come back and just tell you, some information, some interesting information about stuff from that list. And so the first thing that I want to share is I want to give an honorable mention. I want to give an honorable mention to Space Base. So Space Base is a really good game because, well, if you have the command station, it goes up to like 7 players. It's essentially simultaneous play. There is one person who is taking their turn, but everybody sort of gets to do something on that person's turn. You roll some dice. Everybody at the table gets some stuff. You're trying to make combos of your ships in order to get buying power to buy new ships to dock at your station or to, get points, because essentially you're trying to get enough points. Just race to get enough points to win the game. So it's a fantastic game. I'm giving it an honorable mention because it was actually tied with Sushi Go in the 25th spot. So it was this close to being the number 25 game. So the way I did mention that I assigned points to all these games using an algorithm. And these two games had the same amount of points, Sushi Go and Space Base. And so how do I break ties? Well, I pick the game that was highest rated on somebody's list beats out the other game. So in this case, Sushi Go did beat out Space Base, but they were tied on points. There were actually a few ties on this list. Pandemic was tied with Dead of Winter, but beat it out in the tiebreaker. Everdell went to 18 on a tiebreaker, beat Libertalia at 19. For Sale at 16, beat Point Salad at 17. It's interesting, in 2021, Pandemic was number 25, but only after breaking a tie with Everdell, Space Base, and Just One. There was a 4-way tie. Crazy. So those other 3 games actually missed the list, and Pandemic stuck in at number 25 last year. So that's sort of interesting. I do have a Hall of Fame associated with MrX's top 25 games of all time. And there are 13 games in the Hall of Fame. In the beginning, the criteria was a little bit different. I changed the criteria, but all the games that are in there still meet the criteria. The criteria is essentially that they have been on the list 4 times with a top 10 finish, or they've been on the list 5 times. There are a few Hall of Fame games that missed the list. Can you just guess, Jon? Can you guess one maybe that was really popular, but something new might have knocked it off the list, taken some of its...
Let me look at this list.
Well, I'm going to list some of the other ones while you're thinking about it. So Cosmic Encounter got knocked off the list. Carcassonne, which has actually been number 1 before. There are only 3 games that were number 1 before this year. Didn't make it. Sentinels of Multiverse didn't make it. 7 Wonders didn't make it. And can you guess the other game?
Ticket to Ride?
No, Terraforming Mars didn't make it. So I don't know.
Well, that's tough though, because Ares and Terraforming Mars, because Ares is on the list, and Terraforming Mars is not going to be. So it's a tough one, because do you lump them in the same game even though they're completely different? Is it a reimagining of it? It's tough, and I put Ares on my list over Terraforming Mars, even though Terraforming Mars was my number 1 game for a long time, just because Ares does what it does better, faster, and stronger. So yeah, it's a tough call.
Ark Nova has also been dinging Terraforming Mars down some people's lists, right? So,
the novelty of Ark Nova alone, when it's in the same space, is enough to have that recency bias, I think.
Yeah. Another interesting game that missed the list, which was in the Hall of Fame, is the Castles of Burgundy. And that is particularly interesting because for the first 2 years of this list, that game was number 1. And in fact, Castles of Burgundy was on the list every year up until this year. And I mentioned when we did Keyflower, I mentioned it was on the list every year, except for the one year it got an honorable mention because I'm a jerk. But there is one game that has been on the list every year, including this year. And you're never going to guess what it is, but I'll give you a chance. Can you guess?
Merchants and Marauders.
No, Merchants and Marauders was not on the first year, but I think it was on every other year.
That's close.
It is Steampunk Rally. Steampunk Rally has been on the list every year, which is pretty crazy. Also, I think it's pretty crazy that Battlestar Galactica debuted at number 1, right?
And it's only been 10 years since it was released.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere.
It's just,
get that staying power.
Yeah, it's people change in their lists makeup, and some people don't submit lists, and then some people submit lists, so things sort
I
of
think it goes in
change over
cycles
time.
too. You might not play Battlestar for 3 years, then you play it and you're like, oh, I remember why I love this so much, and bam, it's suddenly back on the list and it's up high.
Yeah, yeah. So I do have two new Hall of Fame inductees this year, though. So let's give out a shout out and congratulations to No Thanks. So No Thanks finished 22nd in 2018, number 5 in 2019. So there's a top 10 finish. Number 14 in 2020. And then, of course, was number 6 this year. So another top 10 finish. So that meets the criteria. Some people really like sort of the Hall of Fame list of games, even though it's not that large, because these are games that, I mean, you got to have staying power to be on the list 4 or 5 times.
They're
Right?
evergreen to the list.
Yeah, you can't be a flash in the pan and make that list. And, speaking of games that are evergreen and classics, we have another inductee, and that is Pandemic.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that Pandemic just squeaked in last year at number 25, but it was number 20 this year. But it was in 2018, it was number 12. And way back in 2017, it was actually number 3. I can't remember. Maybe in 2017, did I also add the Legacy ones in? I'm not sure. That might have been before the Legacy. I don't know when Legacy Season 1 came out, actually.
I think it was 18.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe Pandemic actually took a little bit of a hit from Legacy coming out, right? Because some people started put Legacy in their list and not the other. And I think even one person started putting like one of the dice, like the dice game or something on the list instead of Pandemic. So, it has fallen down a little bit just from cannibalizing its own success. But Pandemic is one of those games like Carcassonne that I mentioned that is essentially a game system at this point. Oh, you know what? I didn't give you a chance to comment about Space Base, by the way, with the honorable mention. Are you a fan?
Yeah, I love Space Base. I have it. Of all the games in that genre of like build up your numbers and hope that your numbers come up, it's my favorite in that by far. And part of it's space. I love space. I love sci-fi. Part of it, the components look really cool. I like the long, slender cards that slide in and slot and all that. So I do love Space Base. I was a little sad it didn't make the list, but I think I love Sushi Go a little bit more. So I can't disagree with the tiebreaker in that sense because that's where I would rank the two. But it was 26 for a reason. It's still a really solid game.
Yeah, it's funny. Tiffany on the channel talks about Space Base and Terraforming Mars being her favorite games of all time, and they both just missed the list here.
Yeah, this is an anti-Tiffany bias.
Yeah. All right, so I've got some statistics here that are based off of information on Board Game Geek. I don't know if you have the list of the games in front of you, but maybe you just guessed based on your memory. The highest ranked game on Board Game Geek that made this top 25 was ranked number 32. Do you know what game that is?
Just because I think it's more popularity than anything, I'm going to go with Battlestar.
It is Everdell.
Really?
Everdell is ranked 32 on Board Game Geek, apparently. And that is the highest ranked game on this list.
It's interesting because I love Everdell, but it's one of the games I just can't get to the table. Castles of Burgundy and Everdell. I bring them with so much hope in my heart.
Oh,
I think taking them back unopened.
Everdell's got the AP problem, but I think Castles of Burgundy is just burnout, right? People have played that so much, they want to play something new,
I think the two biggest misses in board games in the last few years have been the Castles of Burgundy reprint and the Lords of Vegas Kickstarters.
No.
They're both, like, you could elevate them both to a higher level and just, like, wow people, and I think they just fell short.
Yeah. All right, so that was the highest ranked. Do you know what the lowest ranked game is? It's 593 on Board Game Geek.
I would probably say Race for the Galaxy.
Oh no, Race for the Galaxy might still be in the top 100. I'm not sure. Formula D is 593. Yeah, it's way down there. It doesn't get a lot of love because it's so simple, but that's one of the reasons I like it. The median, so the average rank is 286. And just for as a note, the 286th ranked game on Board Game Geek is Glass Road. So that's odd. But the median rank is 314. Which of these games do you think is ranked 314th? I would not have guessed this one. So
Keyflower.
No, it's Merchants and Marauders. Keyflower is actually fairly highly ranked too, I think. Maybe top 100. I'm not sure. All right, so now let's talk about game weight. So weight is Well, so game rank is based on user input. People rate
Mhm.
things, and that's where the ranking comes from. Weight is also based on user input. People can vote on what they think a weight of a game is. And the weight goes from 1 to 5, where 5 are really heavy and 1 is light. And usually when people talk about this complexity of heavy or light, they're talking about, how sort of complicated the game is. I don't think necessarily they mean some people think strategic depth. Some people think amount of rules overhead or stuff like that.
How hard it is to teach, maybe.
Yeah. So you probably could get this. What do you think is the lowest weight game on this list?
The lowest weight?
Yeah, at 1.05.
Point salad?
There's a few actually that are
No
pretty
thanks.
low. No thanks is pretty low. I'm not sure what the point salad is, but just one is 1.05.
Yeah.
So yeah, there might have been a couple that were really low, like 1.15 or something. No thanks.
You could probably teach just one in like 2 sentences if you craft it well enough.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This surprised me, not because I don't think this game is heavy, but just surprised me it was the highest weight game on the list at 3.34. What do you think is?
Dead of Winter?
No. I would have thought it would have been something like Battlestar Galactica, but I guess
Battlestar and Dead of Winter are kind of similar in like Betrayer and stuff like that. And that always adds a little bit of depth.
Well, the highest weight game here is Keyflower.
Interesting.
So the game's averaged out to a weight of 2.21, which is what's a medium complexity, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so 2.21 for reference is the weight of Clank.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, but the median weight, the game in this list that is in the sort of the middle of the complexity spectrum, was 2.4. And can you guess what that one is? I actually thought this game would have been lower complexity or weight, sorry. But people say it's 2.4.
Libertalia?
Pandemic.
Huh. Pandemic seems very easy to me.
Yeah, would you look at this list and say Pandemic is in the middle? I think maybe people are thinking that to play Pandemic really well, you have to have a well-crafted strategy and be versed in the strategy, and maybe that's where they're getting weight from. No, I don't know. Seems
that's interesting.
Out of whack to me. But yeah. Anyway, there you go. There's talk about the Hall of Fame, new Hall of Fame inductees. We had an honorable mention, and we had some BGG stats based on this top 25. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this top 25 that we did basically all month long. Give us a like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. I'd appreciate that. But this is still a contest. So, why don't you tell me what you think about some of the stats or whatever we talked about today here in the YouTube comments. I'm going to draw sometime around the end of the month. I'm going to draw from all the people who commented on these Mr. X videos. And there will be a prize. So we'll just see who wins that. But until I announce that, I'm Stephen. That's Jon. We're from Just Got Played. And thanks for joining us.